Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Today is Tuesday, January the 19th, 2021, and I'd like to officially call the Macon-Bibb County Commission meeting to order. We'll begin tonight with our prayer, which will be led this evening. Please stand if you may, and it'll be led this evening by Mayor Pro Tem Clark. We'll follow that by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please bow with me. Lord, we come to you this evening anxious and in need of comfort and resolve. Our country is tired with division and distrust. Our bonds in humanity weakened by untruths, and our commitment to each other, to what Dr. Martin Luther King referred to as the beloved community, strained by bitterness. We come to you this evening asking for the comfort and resolve to love and trust one another as you have taught us. We ask that you give us grace in our words and hone our focus on the shared and common goal of lifting up and bettering this community. To that end, may the policies that come forth from this body reflect a shared compassion for and commitment to your beloved community, to this beloved community. For we are in need of justice, equity, and love. And may our words to each other and to those around us lend themselves to the healing our body politic so desperately needs. Let us remember there are those who are hungry and those who have no home. In the name of the holy that binds us, amen.
Amen. Stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we move to item number 4, proclamation presentations, I would like to make a motion to amend the agenda to move the executive session after the consent agenda and to include the following. A motion to amend the agenda to add consideration of record made exempt from public inspection or disclosure pursuant to Open Records Act, where consideration could not reasonably occur without disclosure of exempt materials in an open meeting. That is my motion. Can I get a second? Got a motion by Pro Tem Clark. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously, and we will take that executive session up after the consent agenda. At this time, we'll move to proclamation presentations. Our first proclamation tonight will be presented in regards to the Martin Luther King Jr. Day by Commissioner Paul Bronson.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Proclamation, Office of the Mayor's Office. Whereas the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the pivotal leader of the American Civil Rights Movement and one of the most influential and powerful orators for peace, equality, and human rights in world history, was born January 15th, 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia. And whereas throughout his life, Dr. King's transcendent words and actions inspired in countless millions a shared vision of a future promised land in which people are not segregated along racial lines, but instead united in a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. And whereas, understanding that all forms of racial injustice are in clear and direct contradiction with the basic tenets of morality and the principles of America contained in the Declaration of Independence. Dr. King sacrificed his life to spread a message of universal equality and justice that touched the souls of a nation. And for his efforts to end racial segregation and discrimination through civil disobedience and other nonviolent means, such as his heroic leadership in the 1955 Montgomery bus boycott, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference in 1957, and the 1963 March on Washington. He was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964 and widespread recognition as an embodiment of God-given, inalienable rights outlined in the Constitution of the United States of America. And whereas people throughout the world continue to be inspired by Dr. King's vision and words, his strength of character and compassion, and his model for peaceful demonstration and dialogue, his goals of a just and colorblind society, and his efforts in the struggle of civil human rights has persisted since his tragic assassination in 1968, and will continue until his dream of freedom, equality, and justice for all are fully realized. Now, therefore, I, Lester M. Miller, do hereby proclaim January 21, 2021 as Martin Luther King Jr. Day in the city of Macon and I call this observance to the attention of all citizens.
Thank you, Commissioner Bronson. Sure. Yes, ma'am, you may.
Dr. Strickland and I are members.
Yes, at this time, we'll have that acceptance by two of our MLK Commission members, Commissioner Elaine Lucas and Pastor Dr. Henry Ficklin. Thank you, Ms. Lucas. Would you like to say something in regards to our ceremony on yesterday?
I'm glad you asked because I was holding it back. Thank you so very much, Mr. Mayor and others on this commission and those who are at home who took part on yesterday in our wreath laying ceremony in Rosa Parks Square. It was a small gathering and it was intentionally that way because we knew we couldn't have the march, we couldn't have the breakfast, all the other activities that are huge events every year, but we celebrate it nonetheless. And so it's very touching, and I hope you'll go to our Facebook page and you will see pictures from yesterday's remembrance. Your commission is a part of the charter. The Macon-Bibb Martin Luther King Commission is a part of the charter. And your commission has been in place for quite a number of years. And we push the fact that we need to celebrate the ideals and the tenets of Dr. King 365, not just on the day that he died in January and not just on the day that he was assassinated in April. So we appreciate all of you who participated. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucas, and thank you for putting everything together on yesterday. This time, we'll move on to our second proclamation. That proclamation is a presentation by Commissioner Valerie Wynn. Commissioner Wynn.
Certainly don't want to talk muffled in here on this. This is a proclamation from the Office of the Mayor, Macon-Bibb County, Georgia. Whereas just 3 months into 2020, our country was hit with a health pandemic known as COVID virus or COVID-19. And whereas this virus spread rapidly throughout the United States, causing sickness and death and shuttering down the economy across America, forcing Americans to wear masks and practice social distancing. And whereas to abide by Governor Kemp's executive order with regard to social distancing and to continue operating the government of Macon-Bibb County and holding commission meetings, it was recommended that meetings be held by Zoom, a video conferencing app that has become the standard for connecting with others face-to-face virtually in both business and personal settings. And whereas this app became the norm for holding meetings virtually, not only for the Macon-Bibb County Commission, but for other organizations and entities across the country. And whereas being vaguely familiar with this app, Rachel Gamble of the communications staff was diligent in learning the ins and outs and always made herself available to assist with this new way of conducting meetings. And whereas Ms. Gamble joined the communications staff in 2015 as a communications specialist and has a background in journalism. And whereas she is a dedicated employee holding many responsibilities and has been recognized nationally for her work, earning honorable mention in PR Daily's 2018 nonprofit PR awards for her Instagram campaign, The Women of Macon-Bibb, in which she highlighted women working in the consolidated government during Women's History Month. Now, therefore, the Mayor and Commission of Macon-Bibb County would like to recognize Rachel Gamble and proclaim their gratitude for her unselfish dedication and willingness to assist during this unprecedented time. And witness therein, I have caused the seal of Macon-Bibb County to be affixed to this 19th day of January 2021. Lester M. Miller, Mayor. Rachel, would you please come down, please? Surprise. I'm gonna hug her. I don't care.
We'll turn my face
I
this way.
have natural immunities and no virus. And let's hold this up so we can do this. This is from your commissioners and your mayor, and others too. Oh wait, Chris, gotta take off my glasses. Okay, good. And one more thing. You ready? We'd like to give you a token of our appreciation in addition to that too. Thank you very much for your hard work in keeping us in good
Thank
health.
you.
Thank you.
Is it okay if I say something?
Sure.
Sure.
Thank you. First of all, this is completely unexpected. It's hard to surprise me because I pay attention to everything. I really love this community and I love what I do, and that's why I try and always be available to help. So I'm not usually speechless. I'm a little speechless. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rachel, and thank many of our employees. I think what you're going to see from this point on is we're going to have a process to make sure we recognize people appropriately, and I look forward to working each and every one of you on a procedure that we'll have to make sure that everybody gets the recognition that they deserve. So we'll work on that process together. I'll go ahead and move on to the approval of minutes. This is the approval of minutes from December 15th pre-commission and regular commission meeting and the January 5th special call meeting. Can I get a motion to approve, please? Got a motion by Commissioner Howell, second by Commissioner Wilder. Any discussion in that regard? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. This time we'll move on to public comments on agenda items. Attorney McNeil, if you'll please come forward. I do believe we have at least one item on agenda items to read. Is that correct?
Yes, one item.
Go ahead, sir.
This is a comment on the pawn shop moratorium item. The commenter's name is Tony Wood, and he's on Pioneer Avenue. And this was somewhat of a lengthy comment that was written, and so Janice will send the full comment to all the commissioners, but Mayor Miller's asked me to read a section of it. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Tony Wood, and I'm with Old South Pawn Shop, Inc., right here in Macon, Georgia. I'd like to address this board on behalf of the pawn industry. In September of this year, I will celebrate 25 years at Old South Pawn. I've been recognized as a certified pawn professional by the National Pawnbrokers Association. I'm the only one in Middle Georgia and one of only 2 in the state of Georgia, and there are only 24 nationally. First, I'd like this board to know that I believe that Macon-Bibb should come up with 2 different licenses for traditional pawn shops and title pawn shops. The National Pawnbrokers Association doesn't even recognize title pawns as a pawn shop. We're in the midst of reestablishing the Georgia Pawn Association, and in that association we will not recognize title pawns as pawn shops either. In fact, Georgia and Alabama are the only 2 states in this country that issue the same license for both a traditional pawn and a title pawn. Our average loan amount is $151, whereas the title pawn average can be as high as $5,000 to $10,000. In regards to crime, nationally, the average of stolen goods recovered at a pawn shop is about 0.1%. That's nationally. Locally, at my store in particular, but I believe the same would go for others as well, ours was less than 0.1%. Our actual numbers for 2019 were 10 out of 13,875. A percentage so low I don't even know how to say that number. It is 0.0008 of 1%. We require valid government ID on every transaction, and every transaction is downloaded to the sheriff's office every night. At my store, we have over 50 cameras that record the entire parking lot from entry to exit. Along the lines of stolen goods, it will surprise most to know that nationally, 85% of pawned goods are redeemed. Unfortunately, at our store, we don't hit that percentage, but it's still relatively high at 73%. Think of that, 73% of items we take in at pawn are picked up by people that pawn them. In closing, ask yourselves this question. If you didn't have a bank account, if I didn't have a credit card and I needed $150 to pay my power bill, where would you go? If your baby needs diapers or formula, where could you borrow $50 to $75? Banks will not talk to you for less than a $2,000 loan that takes weeks to complete. Our loans are typically small, non-recourse, and our customers are in and out in less than 5 minutes. Thank you for your time.
And thank you for those comments, and I do believe those comments are both helpful to me and probably commissioners. The reason we have this 6-month proposal for a moratorium is to get additional information like been brought to each and every one of us, particularly in regards to traditional and title pawn. So this 6-month moratorium will allow us an opportunity to look at those exact issues. So at this time, we're going to move to the consent agenda. If you'll just take a moment to understand or appreciate the motion I'm about to make so we make sure we're all clear on this motion. I'll be asking for a motion to approve the consent agenda as previously published and previously voted on our last committee meeting. That consent agenda will cover items A all the way through CC in its entirety. We will take one vote on those items. So at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as published. Got a motion by Commissioner Wynn, a second by Commissioner Wilder. Any discussion in regards to the consent agenda? Having no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously, and it passes. This time, I believe we're going to move into the executive session. I'd like to entertain a motion to go into executive session for the previous mentioned reasons. Can I get a motion? Got a motion by Pro Tem Clark. I got a second by Commissioner Wynn. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. We'll be sent to, we'll move into executive session. At this time, we'd ask all parties that may be into the chamber that are not allowed to please exit. Okay, thank you for your patience. At this time, we'll entertain a motion to come out of executive session. Got a motion by Commissioner Wynn, second by Commissioner Wilder. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries, and we're now out of executive session. At this time, we'll move to item number 8, old business, and I'll ask the clerk of commission to please read that.
An ordinance of the Macon-Bibb County Commission to amend Chapter 4 of the Macon-Bibb County Code of Ordinances to provide for a moratorium on the issuance of new alcohol licenses for retail sales of distilled spirits within the territorial limits of Macon-Bibb County and for other lawful purposes.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. You've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion? Got a motion by Commissioner Jones. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Howell. Any discussion in that matter?
And this is for the floor amendment.
Yes. Any discussion in regards to item number 8, old business, which is liquor moratorium amendment? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously and will be passed. We'll move on to new business. We have several items on new business that'll show on our committee calendar as a committee of a whole next week. That first item is a resolution approving a request for installation of 3 lights along Sunset Drive pursuant to Article 10, Chapter 29 of the Code to be paid from the Facilities Management Budget. That will be on the next committee meeting. Item B is a resolution approving a request for installation of streetlights along San Juan Avenue. Item C, a resolution request sponsored by Lester Miller and Commissioner Tillman. This is a resolution to request legislative administrative action relating to the capture of insurance proceeds in order to prevent the abandoned or blighted destroyed structures. I understand Commissioner Bronson would also like to co-sponsor that item. Item D is a resolution by Commissioner Elaine Lucas and myself. That's a resolution reappointing June O'Neill to serve on the Dr. Martin Luther King Board. Item E is another resolution by Commissioner Lucas and myself a resolution reappointing Reverend Evans Browns to serve on the Dr. Martin Luther King Board. Item F is a resolution appointing Reverend Henry Ficklin to serve on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Board, sponsored by Commissioner Lucas and myself. Item G is a resolution reappointing Elaine Lucas to serve on the Martin Luther King Board, sponsored by Commissioner Lucas and myself. Item H is a resolution reappointing Reverend Dominique Johnson to serve on the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Board, sponsored by Commissioner Elaine Lucas and myself. Item I is a resolution reappointing C. Warren Selby Jr. to Post 1 Construction Board of Appeals, sponsored by myself. Item J is a resolution appointing Kelsey Holland to the Keep Macon-Bibb Beautiful Board, sponsored by myself. Item K is a resolution appointing Erin Patrice Keller to the Board of Directors of the River Edge Behavioral Health Community Service Board, sponsored by myself. Item L is a resolution to authorize the mayor to execute a renewal agreement with Global Spectrum LP. That item is sponsored by myself. Item M is a ordinance to establish an automated traffic enforcement safety device program, Macon-Bibb County School Zones, sponsored by myself. Item N is an ordinance to authorize supplemental budget appropriation from funds, the tax commissioner budget for computer software line item in the amount of $10,000, sponsored by myself. At this time, that's all the referrals that we have to new business that'll go on our calendar for the 26th. We will meet at 9 o'clock in our normal places. This time, we do have a few public comments, I believe, Attorney McNeil, on non-agenda items. Commissioner Jones, you have a question? I do. Go ahead, sir.
You lost me there on the ordinance to amend Chapter 4 of the code. I thought we were going to take up an amendment to that. Don't we have to pass the amendment if that's a floor amendment? I thought that was being discussed.
That's what you passed.
As amended?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Passed as amended.
It didn't read that. I didn't read it that way, but maybe as long as that's what it says.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. This time, we'll hear the non-agenda items, Attorney McNeil.
There we go. Okay. There are 3 comments that were submitted as non-agenda items. The first one is from Jean Usher on Cold Creek Parkway. Ms. Usher writes, constant gunshots are always next to my home, especially on the weekends. The shooting began from dark and will continue for as long as 2 hours. On January 10th, 2021, Sunday, the shots started at 9:30 p.m. and continued until 10:30 p.m. They stopped suddenly as if they knew I was contacting law enforcement. The shots were on the side, front, and back of my home. It sounded like New Year's Eve, rifles, pistols, and so on. I have numerous calls to the sheriff department, but with no results. I am in fear of my life. My second issue, I cannot get anyone to respond to me via email nor phone for garbage pickup at Advance. I could not find another service. I have tried for 35 days to contact Advance. Please help as soon as possible. Signed, Jean Usher. I'd for personal privacy reasons, prefer not to read the full address. It's Cold Creek Parkway. The clerk can distribute the full address to everybody.
Me and you both read that.
Go ahead for the second one.
Okay. The second one's from Ray Young on Bradstone Circle. Ms. Young writes, I wish to address the trash and abandoned homes in the predominantly black areas of Macon. I can see that Macon has a lot of construction going on. However, the way this city looks is shameful. I moved here last year from DeKalb County, Georgia, and I am ashamed to invite anyone to come to Macon because it still looks like a slave town that's been abandoned. All the abandoned homes, some barely standing, and even the trash along the sides of the roads. I'm not sure who or what entity in the city is responsible for the looks of the city. I'm aware that we as citizens is responsible also, and we should keep our surroundings clean. I am elderly but not too old to see that there is a lot of neglect in this city. The third comment came by email, and this commenter's name is Sybil McNeil, no relation to yours truly. Ms. McNeil writes, Dear Commissioners, Since I am unsure to whom I should address these concerns, I am doing so to you. I read last week in the Macon Telegraph about the NCHD guidelines and instructions for vaccinations in Macon-Bibb County. I, as a 74-year-old woman with only 2 lung globes instead of 3 due to cancer surgery, and who has a chronic cough and other conditions, was informed in the article that as of today, January 11th, I could call 1-844-987-0099 to make an appointment for my COVID-19 vaccine. I've been calling repeatedly since early this morning and have received nothing but a brief busy signal and a disconnection. As you can imagine, this is desperately disheartening for someone like me who has underlying conditions. I'm concerned that there is not enough staff or phone lines to service the more than 500,000 people in the counties represented in the NCHD. I have even wondered if the phone is just being left off the hook. Last week, when I called this number, I was given the option of hitting either number 1 or number 2 to receive a message, and this week I get only a constant busy signal. Would it not be more cost and time effective to set up an online appointment application, perhaps by county? Hopefully something of this order might more efficiently deal with the appointments and vaccination schedule. Since I just heard today that Georgia is in the lowest quadrant in the nation in getting vaccines into people's arms, maybe this area at least might raise the success rate of getting this done. Thank you for your interest in this issue. I would greatly appreciate if this does not fall under your authority that you might let me know to whom I might address the issue of COVID-19 vaccinations. Sincerely, Sybil McNeil. Mr. Mayor, that concludes the public comments that we received this week.
Thank you, Attorney McNeil, and I'd ask the county manager, Dr. Keith Moffitt, to forward those to each one of the commissioners and address any of those issues that you see fit, please. This time, that concludes all the new business, the old business, and comments section at this time. I would like to take just a brief moment of personal privilege to thank everyone on the Warming Center. As most of you know, the Warming Center has been well receptive of most of the community. We've actually in the process now of having to expand to a 3rd hallway. We had at times over 80 residents there in the Warming Center, and the community support has been just wonderful. We have plenty of items there that meet the needs of the residents there, and we're able now to start looking at the services to provide to them. We still need volunteers, and any cash donations would be greatly appreciated. But I'm very pleased with the community support we have, and also the support of this commissioners in this body. The other thing we had this week is the initiative called Clean Streets Matters, because Macon matters, and we had a very good turnout for that from the community in Pleasant Hill, and we'd like to remind everyone to please continue to visit the website to update that. It's our intention as this body to reach each and every one of those areas covered throughout Macon, but we need the public's help and your assistance in recognizing those areas. So at this time, if there's no further business today, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn. Motion by Commissioner Tillman, second by Commissioner Howell. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, nay. We are now adjourned. Thank you.